Why did Russia attack Ukraine? The answer lies in a series of events that began with the Russo-Ukrainian War in 2014. It was a time when the geopolitical landscape of Eastern Europe began to shift dramatically. The Russo-Ukrainian War was a complex conflict with roots deeply intertwined in political, economic, and cultural factors. This was not a sudden eruption, but a slow-burning fuse ignited by years of tension and disagreement. On the political front, Ukraine's move towards the West and its aspirations to join the European Union and NATO were seen as direct threats to Russia's influence in the region. Russia, under the leadership of Vladimir Putin, was determined to reassert its power and maintain a buffer between itself and the West. Economically, Ukraine was a country in transition. Struggling with corruption and economic instability, it was a nation ripe for manipulation. Russia, with its vast resources and strategic interests in Ukraine's industry, especially its gas pipelines, saw an opportunity to exert control. Culturally, the division was even deeper. Ukraine, a country with a rich and diverse history, found itself split between those who identified more with Europe and those who felt a strong connection to Russia. This cultural divide was particularly evident in Crimea, a region with a large Russian-speaking population. In 2014, Russia made a bold and controversial move. It annexed Crimea, a strategic peninsula on the Black Sea, claiming to protect the rights of Russian-speaking Ukrainians. The world watched in shock and condemnation, but the deed was done. Crimea became a part of Russia, and the conflict in eastern Ukraine intensified. This was no longer a political chess game. It was a real war with real casualties. The eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk declared independence backed by Russia, leading to a protracted and bloody conflict that continues to this day. This set the stage for a more significant military intervention, the one we witnessed in 2022. As we delve deeper into the reasons behind the invasion, it's crucial to remember that this is not just a story of power and politics, but also of people, their hopes, fears, and the struggle for their homeland. The unraveling of peace was not an overnight occurrence, but a complex tapestry of events that led to one of the most significant conflicts of our time. In 2022, Russia escalated the conflict dramatically by launching a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This shocking act of aggression marked a significant change in the ongoing Russo-Ukrainian War that had been simmering since 2014. The invasion was sparked by a complex web of factors, but two immediate triggers stood out prominently. Firstly, Russia cited the alleged threat of NATO expansion. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, had been inching closer to Russia's borders, as countries like Ukraine and Georgia expressed interest in joining the alliance. Russia perceived this as a direct threat to its own security and influence in the region. Secondly, Russia claimed to be protecting the rights of Russian speakers in Ukraine. This was a contentious point, as many questioned whether this justification was a smokescreen for more imperialistic ambitions. The world watched in disbelief as the invasion unfolded. The international community was quick to condemn Russia's actions, with countries around the globe rallying to support Ukraine. Nations imposed a series of stringent sanctions on Russia, aiming to cripple its economy and pressure it to withdraw its forces. Simultaneously, many countries provided Ukraine with financial aid, military equipment, and humanitarian assistance, showing solidarity in the face of Russia's aggression. However, despite the widespread condemnation and punitive measures, the invasion carried on. The conflict intensified, with both sides suffering heavy casualties and the civilian population caught in the crossfire. This was the largest attack on a European country since World War II. It marked a dark chapter in the history of the continent, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace, and a testament to the lengths nations would go to assert their power and protect their interests. The invasion did not result in a quick victory for Russia. Instead, it turned into a war of attrition. This type of warfare saps the enemy's resources, draining them until they can no longer sustain their military campaign. It's a long, drawn-out process, one that has been the hallmark of the Russo-Ukrainian conflict. Russia's military strategy shifted, adapting to the challenges of the Ukrainian resistance and the support Ukraine was receiving from the West. But this wasn't a conventional war with clearly defined front lines. The involvement of private military companies complicated the landscape further. One such group was the Wagner Group, led by oligarch Prigozhin. This group was notorious for its brutal tactics, harking back to a darker era in Soviet history. The Wagner Group, and others like it, were not part of a traditional army structure. They operated in a gray area, often employed by governments that wished to keep their hands clean or maintain plausible deniability. Their presence in Ukraine raised concerns about the nature of the conflict and the potential for escalation. On the other side, Ukraine faced the daunting challenge of resisting a far larger and better equipped military force. But the Ukrainians were not passive victims. They fought back with determination and resourcefulness, managing to slow down and even halt the Russian advance in places. Their resistance was fueled by a combination of national pride, a desire to protect their homeland, and a belief in their right to self-determination. The Ukrainian military, though outnumbered and outgunned, made effective use of what resources it had. They used a mix of conventional tactics and guerrilla warfare to disrupt the Russian forces and keep them off balance. The Ukrainian people, too, played their part, providing support to their troops and standing up to the invaders. Despite the odds, Ukraine continues to hold out against Russia. The War of Attrition grinds on, with no end in sight. The costs are high in terms of lives lost and infrastructure destroyed. But for Ukraine, the price of surrender may be even higher. So what are the possible outcomes of this conflict? As we delve into the future, we find four major pathways that this conflict could traverse. Firstly, there's the possibility of Ukraine holding out. With continued Western aid and a potential decline in Russian morale, Ukraine could weather the storm. Notable victories on the battlefield and changes in leadership could tip the scales in favor of Ukraine. However, this scenario would require unwavering resilience from the Ukrainian people and their allies. It would be a test of endurance, a battle against time and resources. The second potential outcome is a Russian victory. The military of Kyiv is already facing challenges with dwindling supplies and troop numbers. The passage of aid packages and European support are crucial factors in determining the course of the war. It is the lifelines falter, the tide could turn in favor of Russia. However, a Russian victory could instigate further tensions in the global community, potentially reshaping the geopolitical landscape. The third outcome revolves around this negotiation table, a peace deal. There are reports suggesting that Putin may be open to talks to end the war. However, conflicting statements from Kremlin and the US add layers of complexity to this situation. A negotiated peace would ideally suit all parties involved, but the path to such an agreement is fraught with political hurdles and diplomatic intricacies. Finally, there's the unthinkable nuclear war. Putin has hinted at the use of nuclear weapons, but the risks and consequences of such a destruction are dire. The US has warned of severe repercussions, and the global fallout from a nuclear conflict would be catastrophic. This outcome, while unlikely, serves as a grim reminder of the immense power and responsibility that rests on the shoulders of world leaders. In conclusion, the potential outcomes of the Russo-Ukrainian conflict range from a prolonged struggle to the swift resolution, from diplomatic negotiations to a horrific escalation. Each scenario carries its own set of implications for Ukraine, Russia, and the rest of the world. The future remains uncertain, with grave consequences hanging in the balance. Why did Russia attack Ukraine? The reasons are complex and multifaceted. To unravel this question, we have to step back and look at the tapestry of factors that brought us to this point. On one hand, we have the political motivations. Russia, under Putin's rule, has been steadily reverting to a more repressive regime, suppressing civil society, imprisoning political opponents, and invoking historical symbolism to justify its actions. Putin's government has shown an intent to reassert Russia as an empire. The invasion can be seen as a bold move to maintain power, amidst rumors of further mobilization and elite competition. On the economic front, the involvement of the private military company Wagner Group, led by oligarch Prigozhin, raises concerns. The brutal tactics reminiscent of Soviet history and Prigozhin's growing influence present a potential challenge to Putin's power. This involvement suggests that economic interests and the competition for power within Russia's elite may have played a role in the decision to invade. Culturally, the invasion has stirred deep-seated historical and nationalistic sentiments. The visit to Volgograd, a city with profound historical significance, is a clear indication of Russia's attempt to paint its actions in Ukraine with a broad brush of patriotic duty and historical continuity. Strategically, Russia's military approach has shifted to a war of attrition. By adapting to challenges such as Western support for Ukraine, Russia seems to be playing a long game, banking on the eventual weariness of its opponents. In the background, international reactions and the potential repercussions of the invasion continue to unfold. The world watches, hoping for a peaceful resolution, while preparing for all possible outcomes. In conclusion, the reasons behind Russia's invasion of Ukraine are woven from threads of political ambition, economic interests, cultural narratives, and strategic calculations. Understanding these reasons is crucial to finding a solution to this devastating conflict.